Welcome everyone to tonight's Spring Rights Literary Festival event. This is one of 30 events that are taking place from May 3rd to May 14th. You've probably checked them all out already at the Spring Rights website, springrights.org. That's spring, WRITES.org. And the Spring Rights Festival is one of the Community Arts Partnership's annual events. We do the Greater Ithaca Art Trail, the Ithaca Artist Market. We have the Cap Art Space. There's actually a gallery opening happening downstairs in my building right now. We have a Capapalooza Vintage Art Sale. We're going to have networking events and professional development workshops. And we also have 5 grant programs for Tompkins County artists and not-for-profits. This year alone, we are distributing over $550,000 of state, county, and local foundation money for hundreds of local events. So we do good. I'd like to thank our wonderful Spring Rights sponsors. They are Ithaca College, Wegmans, M&T Bank, CFCU Community Credit Union, the Odyssey Bookstore, and the Ithaca Marriott. And we receive grant support from New York State Council on the Arts, Poets and Writers, and Tompkins County Tourism. Our media sponsors are WITH Radio, WSKG, and Cinemapolis. And because of all those wonderful sponsors, we can have 120 artists that we pay and 40 events that we can offer for free. So we thank them profusely. So now I am going to turn the mic over to Janie Bibbie. And there we are. And you could take yourself off. There you go.
Okay.
Welcome. Oh, I'm going to introduce you.
Okay.
I forgot. I got to tell you guys about the Poet Laureate program. So this is a Poet Laureates reading, and the position of Tompkins County Poet Laureate was established by the Tompkins County Legislature in 2001 to honor local outstanding poets. I'm going to put my face back up here with yours. And to integrate poetry into the community, enrich, I can't click and do things at the same time, to enrich the education of our young people and enhance the county's position as a cultural center. So the Community Arts Partnership has actually been administering the county's Poet Laureate program. And we solicit nominations and organize the selection panel for appointment. And appointments lately have been for 2-year terms. I think in the beginning, it may have been a 1-year term. This is an honorary position. Now, the current Poet Laureate, Janie Bibbie, has been a resident of Tompkins County for 50 years. She serves as trustee, deaconess, and leader of the caregiver group of the Calvary Baptist Church, and is a member of the Business Leaders of Color, GIAC's Greater Ithaca Activity Center Senior Program, and the Tompkins County Quilters Guild. She's the author of Alzheimer's Up Close and Personal and 12 volumes of poetry, including Pieces of Life, Poems from Smooth and Broken Places, and Keep Moving, Poems for What's Next. I am going to put the artists' links into the chat. And Janie, is it okay if I put in your Amazon link?
Sure.
People can see where to get your stuff. So there we go. Oh, can you guys see? I'm so sorry. There we go. You do something 1,000,000 times with Facebook, and then on the 1,000,001st time, you go to reach for a little button, and the button just isn't there anymore. But now we've got Janie, and I will turn the mic over to you.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. I will be reading 3 of the poems that readers and listeners have told me are their favorites. The first poem is Song in the Night, from the book Remnants, Poems for Pauses. The second poem is entitled At Least, and it is from the book entitled Keep Moving, Poems for What's Next. The third poem is entitled 2 Cents, which is in the book Remnants, Poems for Pauses. 2 Cents is definitely the most popular poem that I've written. Song in the Night. Someone is singing loud and clear. It's the middle of the night, and the song hits my ear. Is he homeless or just out for a stroll? There's no way to know, but a prayer floods my soul. Lord, listen to this song that fills the night air. It could be a plea asking if you care. It could be joy that has overflowed. It could be pain from situations untold. A song soothes the edges of the sharp stings of life. My prayer is that whatever is wrong is being eased by the notes of his song. That song in the night is a bit off key, but to the one who made voice, it is sweet music indeed. It's starting to rain. The song does not stop, does not take note of raindrops from the sky. The singing gets louder as the night passes by. In just a few hours, daylight will reveal the face of the voice that is singing to heal whatever hurts the singer endures. I pray that his songs have somehow cured whatever caused him to be outside, singing loud and clear because it seemed right, the best he could do for rest in the night. The rain is still falling and washes away the song in the night, and hopefully too the tears that were mingled with those notes in the song of the unknown singer who sang loud and long. At least. If you try and fail, at least you are trying. If you sing and forget the words, at least you are singing. If you walk and stumble, at least you're not sitting and doing nothing. If you have a goal and do not reach it, at least you are doing what you can to make your dreams come true. At least keep moving. That's the best thing to do. 2 cents. The matter is not my concern, yet here I am putting in my 2 cents, thinking my thoughts will add value and insight to what does not concern me. 2 cents, too many, too little for something bigger than it appears to an outsider like me. My comments are misguided. My voice should be directed above to the Creator, who knows all about the matter. He paid the price. My 2 cents can stay in my pocket to be used at another time and place where it will be needed and valued and appreciated in matters that are my concern. I have a lot of personal favorites, but I'll share 2 of them with you this evening. The first one, entitled Fork Full of Comfort, from my book, Keep Moving, Poems for What's Next, is a fun poem about my love of food. The second poem is entitled Nap Before Bed, from the book Thunderstorm, Poems for Quiet Times. There may be someone in your household who routinely takes a nap before going to bed. So this poem is dedicated to that person. Fork Full of Comfort. Food and me, we great friends. Fork goes with us everywhere. We sit and eat and eat. Hunger used to be with us. We left him behind. He was too slow, only wanted to stay a little while. Food and fork and me, we best friends, together all the time. Plate and bowl don't mind. We keep them busy. Poor hunger, waiting for somebody to be its friend. It will have to look elsewhere. Food and fork and me, we too busy to be waiting for him to get up and go with us. Nap before bed. Just a little tired, he said. Then he took a nap before bed. He slumped way down in his favorite chair, with TV blaring in the evening air. He snored very gently with mouth open wide, slept so soundly for quite a while. He finished his nap, looked at me and said, "I think I'll get ready for bed." Naps before bed are what you do after youthful years have left you. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next person to read is going to be Jack Hopper. Oh, Janie, are your books available anywhere in Ithaca by any chance?
Yes, all of them are available at Odyssey Bookstore. Some of them are available at Buffalo Street Bookstore, and some are available at the Legacy Cafe at the Ithaca Airport.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So next up, I'm going to introduce you, Jack. So Jack Hopper was the Poet Laureate from 2015 to 2016. He is a poet and editor. He served twice as Tompkins County's Poet Laureate and continues to write. He has 4 published collections of poetry and is working on a 5th due later this year. He works as a freelance editor of scholarly texts. Take it away.
Thank you, Robin, for all you've done. And thank you, Janie. Good luck and enjoyment in your tenure. I'm going to read a few poems that shouldn't take too much time. The first one has to do with my late wife, but mainly it has to do with Thelonious Monk, also known as Thelonious Thunk at times. It's called Morning Monk. Clean sheets and the same old dreams. You're always in the next room, coming in and no surprise. And still you're taking me in, taking me back. Sunday morning, Monk, making it new on the FM, would have been 105 today. They're all most dead. Just me and my radio and that strong left hand funking after me through the AM fog, never quite catching up to my body or soul the way you did. The next poem is called The Devil in the Deep Blue Sea. And it has to do with the fact that my wife and I had a third partner, which was the moon. We often found ourselves arguing with each other, and suddenly one of us would point up and say, "Hey," that's the way it was. And the argument would stop and the good stuff would start. Anyway, Devil in the Deep Blue Sea. How many times did we ask it? How often, if we could afford it, would we have made the break? So goes the painful part. There was never a black and white of it. Right and wrong always figured, but never as strong as the moon, full of its monthly mischief, reducing us to laughter when we knew we were only pawns in its game, that never awarded a winner, only monthly madness, soon gone. We sat at the ocean's edge, unbelievers waiting for confession, and the water intoned its refrain that had nothing to do with us. So we accepted its wisdom as such, accepting its laughter as such, and went home again, hand in hand, into bed, side by side, as such. My mother, in the last 5 years of her 100 years, lived in my house, and it was quite an adventure in every respect. She told me once about a story about her father, who was the most admired person in the entire family. I think he was an amazing man, but apparently he had a temper and she had never experienced it. And this is called, You Don't Know What Love Is. For this, he chased her up the stairs and she just made it to the bathroom and locked the door. She told me it was the only time she ever felt afraid of him, her father. My mother was full of surprises, and this tale was one of them. I was not surprised. I felt her fear outside that bathroom door, even though my grandfather's now long dead and his daughter gone at 100. 2, we can never know what love is, except what it means to us after it's happened. That young woman was right. Her man was what she wanted. What she took in with her when she ran was all of her future, and her father knew it and was fighting against that loss. 3, those stairs are worn. A carpenter is in order. Beware an old man's tread. I'm beginning to find that the worst part of growing older is losing one's friends. It happens more and more. It's unpredictable and unpreventable. And this poem is called Side Sleeper. Get rid of that, okay. Tonight, my heart's in the highlands with my oldest friends. We meet in abandoned hunters' cabins about where the tree line ends. And by the time we make it there, at least 1 or 2 of us do not. So we pour a whiskey and hoist it. How to keep sleeping, knowing they are gone, yet sensing that they're still out there, longing for the warmth inside. Just as I'm deciding whether to stay on my right side or turn left near the heart. Re-enter that smoky cabin and rejoin the dwindling circle of friends. Some of us, up until about 2-3 years ago, had the pleasure of knowing Joyce Holmes McAllister. It was a remarkable, remarkable lady, and a good poet too, and a wonderful conversationalist. And this touches upon some of the relations that I had the pleasure of knowing her. Forgotten languages. Those teachers who taught us Latin, with whom did they speak it? Was there some underground cabal connected to the Vatican cellars? When I find a poem I want to communicate with someone, anyone who likes that language, with whom do I speak? Friends, of course, with fine intelligence will politely endure my enthusiasm and as gently look at the time and so gently tender their goodbyes. And then there was you, who would cradle the phone with welcome and urge me on to read. Yes, read that poem to me, you'd say, and maybe read it again, and pausing, clear your thoughts and thank me and repeat a word or line you liked. And then, already old and blind, you fell to illnesses that couldn't be turned around, only treated, poked, try their potions. Then there was no sound, save for the silence of your phone, of your laughter, the fullness of your glass, the generous meals, the language we spoke, rooted in lands that no longer exist or never were, a love no stronger than a fine essence escaped from a bottle left on a wintry beach for solitary wanderers to find, examine, rub, and speak to, waiting as we did, you and I, for that giver of wishes. That's it. Thank you.
You're muted.
So Jack, do you have any upcoming events to plug, or do you have any places where people can find your poetry? Now you're muted.
It's in Buffalo Street Books and in, I think in Odyssey, I'm not sure. And the library, I hope. Okay.
Great.
Yeah.
Janie, we just plugged a reading that you're doing at the First Unitarian on Friday, June 2nd in the chat.
All right, thank you.
So the next reader is going to be Jay Leeming. And I'm just gonna. Hi, Jay. So Jay was the Poet Laureate from 2010 to 2011. He is a poet and performance storyteller who has spent years bringing the power of the spoken word to audiences in theaters, schools, libraries, and national parks. He's the author of 3 books of poetry, the creator of the Crane Bag Storytelling podcast, and the recipient of a fellowship from the National Endowment for the Arts. His performances of the Odyssey, the Epic of Gilgamesh, and numerous Norse and Greek myths can be found at his website, jleeming.com. I put some links to the Poet Laureates in the chat for you guys. So thank you, Jay. Take it away.
Thank you, Jay. Take it away. See Robin speaking poetry even now. Look at that. It's rubbing off. It's rubbing off.
I'm so proud.
Thank you, Robin, for making this happen. Thank you, all the Poets Laureates. Thank you for the people here making this happen. Here's a brief sound, just because, you know, I love words. But let's give a little, you know, we need to cleanse our palates. We've heard all these words, you know. Yeah, so just cleanse that palate. All right. It's a restaurant with many dishes, this little Zoom meeting. So also I'm going to invite you to do something. We got to keep it live because we're live. We're definitely live, but we're not like in a room with carrots and wine and crackers. So we need to amp it up here a little bit. So I invite you now, please remain muted, or this won't work, but please remain muted. Think of the word you want to hear. In your soul, you came tonight possibly wishing for a word to be said. Poems are made of words and other things, but, a word like billboard, or what do I know, catheter, Stratocaster, fireball, Jupiter, watermelon, a word. Think of that word you want to hear tonight. You may or may not hear it, but just think of it in your mind. I count to 3. We're all going to be muted. I'm going to mute me too, and we're going to say that word. You can shout it if you want to. It'll be a one glorious, invisible poem. It'll happen. It'll go away like a soap bubble. So ready, 1, 2, 3. All right. This isn't, it's not a stunt here. We just want to keep it alive, So this is 3 poems from my book, To a God of Dribble Glasses and Loneliness, my 3rd book. There it is backwards in the mirror. It is forwards if you buy it. And you can buy it at Odyssey and at Buffalo Street, along with my other 2 books. This is called Tinnitus. It's about the ringing in your ears you get, in my case, from playing rock and roll. So it's all my own fault. Back in my 20s. Tinnitus. It's the squeal in my head of all the guitar riffs I ever unloaded into air. Songs pressed so thin I barely hear them, but I barely hear them all the time. A screeching residue from my days of wail and flail, what I get for turning the knob to 10. It rings like shiny things, like stainless steel or glimmers of light on car fenders, like bright spoons in mirrors or a spotlight glaring off a suit of armor. If only I'd been wearing a suit of armor or a helmet of cork, if I'd fired up that amplifier by remote control from a concrete bunker 8 blocks away. Now this inexhaustible sand in the shoes of my listening. They say it's the little hairs of my inner ear broken off, weed-whacked, zapped like the tops of trees by summer lightning. I blame myself. I blame Thomas Edison. I blame the lack of elders in mud huts chanting red medicine beneath the cornflower moon. I hear it most in the sea-deep silences of the far forest, an extra bug-like whine beneath the leafy murmur. Like some dirtball punk rocker I once knew who has smuggled himself into my future. A reeking stowaway from those nights when I was the power cord overlord in a basement crowded with mic stands and wires. Regrets? Sorrow? Don't look back is the most rockin' philosophy, but it stays. It rings and sings like a fire alarm keening inside a star. I'm pierced, I'm needled, I'm prickled and sung, and it seems this limitless aria needs my head to whistle in, that the unshaven angel, whose music is a dog whistle multiplied by the square root of a house on fire, has chosen my skull for his amphitheater. Faithful companion, screeching wind, inner tattoo, unshakable hitchhiker in the big rig of the mind. I leave it behind, but it does not leave me behind. Go. All right, and now we got a poem. This is called Full Moon. There's a moon up there. Check it out. Yeah, sometimes it's louder, sometimes it's quieter. It's been up there recently in its big state. Once you give a poem a title like Full Moon, you all know what it's going to be about. So you can just pile one metaphor after the other until the sentences are just fat, like people who've had a lot of chocolate. So this is Full Moon. White as a bleached shell rinsed by darkness and polished by all the floods of electrons come careening out of the sun for the last 4 billion years. Its craters scoured into brightness by what light says to charcoal and what ravens say to the rusty questions riding in their blood. The moon does to me what it does to others. Cloud-colored engine powering my enthusiasms, my tar pits of grouch, my black light despondencies. Full as it is, it adds an extra snarl to every argument, deepens the caress and the silences between words, fills the hospital with patients and the streets with more police. In the grip of its weight, I go from annoyance to anger, sadness to sorrow, minor ocean that I am, nagged by these serious gravities. Remind me again that my every action is a stone hefted in the sling of your rhythms, that I am made of water, and so am subject to you, pale sister, white rifle, grandmother of salt, and choir of one. Wrinkled, of course, weathered, absolutely, so extravagant in your pillagings, so generous with all you have borrowed. Cold queen, tongueless beggar given ownership of the whole sea, lost word in a language I could only understand if I were a ladder of sodium or a hunk of chalk cast to the bottom of a cistern filled with eggshells. Measurer of my life and of woman's pain. White yak tied to a pole in a yurt stitched from the north wind, breath of a drum. And then it is obscured by clouds. One more for you. Wind. We got moon. We got wheel. We got hissing in the air. We got moon. Now we got wind. So this is called Wind in the Trees. I'm going to leave fire, water, and earth and sky to the other poets who are quite capable of invoking all those things. So wind in the trees. Genius makes its own rules, but disaster does also. The hurricane tossing jet skis through the windows of the grocery store as though it thought they belonged there. The acupuncturist pricks me with needles to rearrange the crooked lightning in my arms, to smooth out the tangles painfully snarled in my fingers. And perhaps every pain is just a pleasure in the wrong place, a delight misfiled, like a pink birthday balloon collapsed at the edge of a field. They say all the wind wants is to balance out the forces of high and low pressure, to find a breathless equilibrium in which oceans will be like mirrors. But if I were the wind, I'd want to knock over a barn, trouble a chain-link fence with plastic bags, or set the chill girders of some railroad bridge thrumming with my voice. If I could bury Los Angeles in sand, or fling a rotten sycamore into the street, or maybe just ruffle a small girl's hair. But I am not the wind, and even if eternity asked me, I could never step so completely out of my name. It's in the backyard now, making music of the trees, a thing immense and untiring, stubborn as all geniuses are. Thank you for listening. A brief little thing here, just a segue, because there's more. This is not the end. There's more coming. Thank you, and let us have some more words.
sunlight is going to be difficult.
Okay, Katharyn, I'm going to introduce you. So Katharyn Howd Machan has been writing and publishing poetry for half a century. She lives and teaches in Ithaca at Ithaca College with her beloved spouse and fellow poet Eric Machan Howd. She directed the Feminist Women's Writing Workshops, Inc., and served as Tompkins County's, yes, it was the first Poet Laureate in 2002 to 2004. She belly dances. And Katharyn, I put your link to your ithaca.edu Machan in the chat for people to read more about you.
Thank you, Robin. I'm going to begin with a poem I'll dedicate to any of us who, well, I guess you could say we think we find poetry, but I think pretty much poetry finds us if it becomes part of what our life is, the core of us. When I turned 16, I found the demon in the temple. Note my grandmother, snoring, now deceased, had warned me about in her hard dreams, although she resented my existence as evidence of her daughter's marriage to a man who loved music more. It grinned. It spat out my name as though I were a cunning word someone playing Scrabble might find in a lucky deal of small pale squares laid out hidden from a rival who needed to prove themselves more. I stroked the marble of the walls. I gazed into its purple eyes. I knew who I was, but it still tried to seep into my soul. I write poems, I firmly claimed. How dare you ask for more? This next poem might be about finding peace. It might be about making a friend. It might be about finding a poem. During music, find the blue balloon. Find it rising into a sky, the very same blue, a blue that makes the blue balloon hard to see, hard to find. Let your mind become a woman dressed in white, old-fashioned from long ago, standing at the end of a path with a basket in her hand. Watch her stand as though looking to give flowers to the next lone traveler who gently comes her way. Say nothing. Simply, step by step, approach her open smile. While you walk, while you find her eyes, remember that blue sky. Why are you here at all? Give your name. The secret one, a bad person, once told you not to share. Dare accept a blossom full and bright. Light will lengthen as the woman nods and says her name, the one you heard whispered from the blue balloon. Soon you and she will both gaze up and watch it climbing high. As I'm looking at myself on camera, I realize I'm being completely swallowed by the sinking sun. It's a very weird sensation. As Jack mentioned, we begin to lose friends. We who stay alive, those we love do not. And this poem arose in my grief for a dear friend who passed away in Florida less than a year ago. Gathering beneath the palm. The women whisper at first, then in their checked and paisley dresses, talk more loudly because their men are not around, are not about, are probably shooting alligators, delayed and demanding the brimming baskets, the women have filled with muffins and meat. Good women, tender women, loving life in a sunful world with homes they can manage for daughters and sons, still young enough to care that mama might cry sometimes, but it's all right. June moon, a blue sky high with thin black birds seeking prey. The women share their precious time with smiles and nods, their knowledge sure that they will always have each other, if not for all of life, at least the memories of how their words shaped into joy this one slow day. Recently, I made myself have the wonderful experience of not staying in my office at Ithaca College when I arrived, but venturing out close to dawn. Solitude at the chapel pond. As others enter doors, turn on computers, huff their breath, getting ready to teach. Walk out into cool April air, brilliant with the sun just risen, into a sky so blue the lake before your city's hill dares promise winter will never come again. Pause in reverie. Pause to revere the tall bronze hair beating its bodhrán in morning breeze, to celebrate the coming of Esther. Soon now, with her painted eggs, you'll gather in beribboned baskets and bring to neighbors, family, friends. One or two students may pass you, solemn, even this early, intent on phones that keep them from seeing daffodils, just starting to reveal bold yellow where shadows have receded faster and red brick walls share warmth. Down a slope towards the place of prayer, find the flat stones of the path that leads you past last autumn's cattails to where wild geese curve long black necks to warn you, here we will hide nests. Promise them you understand, then move away with a nod, a smile, to where two mallards swim across calm water in their perfect pair. Stand there. Congratulate the male for finding a brown mate. His emerald will complete as they make ducklings for the longer days this season will become. Wait until they pass in peace. The day before you, better now. Your walk away from where you work. The worship too few live. Thank you for listening, and thank you for having this event happen, Robin. Congratulations, Janie.
Thank you. So next up, we have Gail. Gail Holst-Warhaft was the Poet Laureate between 2011 and 2012. She's a poet, prose writer, and translator of Greek literature. She's the author of 2 collections of poetry, Penelope's Confession and Lucky Country, and a number of books about Greek music and poetry. Her most recent book is it Nisiokita? Music, Dances, and Bittersweet Songs of the Aegean Islands. And I've got your website in the chat. And I want to mention that Gail is also part of another panel that's taking place. You're in the panel about, a weaving of music and grief, a weaving music and grief in ancient Greek myth. It's Saturday the 13th at 1:30 at the Community School of Music and Arts. And I also want to mention that Katharyn Machan is doing a workshop tomorrow for teens at the library called Dragons, Unicorns, and Monsters in Your Heart. So thank you, Gail.
Thanks so much, Robin, and thank you, Janie, for inviting us all to read. I think it was a very generous and nice idea to bring previous Poets Laureate together with you to read. I've been thinking about favorite poem. In fact, I agonized a lot about what to read. And I thought very much about the idea of the music and what music in the poetry is it that first attracts you? What becomes your favorite poet when you're a child or a very young person? I was lucky I had a mother who taught English literature and read poetry to me when I was a child. And so I was always able to say, Mom, I want that one again, or that one again, read me that one. And the music of Keats was, I think, the most influential music to me. The rhythms and the sounds of Keats are perhaps the foundation of anything I write somehow, even though I may stray a long way away from it. That's what the music was for me in English poetry. And I thought, just to remind us of what wonderful music he wrote, I might read just one stanza of the Ode to the Nightingale. And because it's a stanza that's based on May, and it's written in the middle of May. So this is a stanza that I particularly like. I cannot see what flowers are at my feet, nor what soft incense hangs upon the boughs, but in embalmed darkness guess each sweet wherewith the seasonable month endows the grass, the picket, and the fruit tree wild. White hawthorn and the pastoral eglantine, fast fading violets covered up in leaves, and mid-May's eldest child, the coming musgroves, full of dewy wine, the murmurous haunt of flies on summer eves. So that was the sort of poetry that I'm also like Katharyn in the rays of the setting sun. We've both got caught in the rays of the setting, which is nice. But I have been a translator of Greek poetry for many years. And when you start translating the poetry of another language, you really have to immerse yourself in that music, and it's a very different music. And I think that the poet that perhaps is Greece's greatest poet is Constantine Cavafy, and a lot of you know his poem Ithaca, but I thought I'd read a very short poem of his that I like a lot, and I thought I'd read a few lines in Greek first so that you can hear the music of the Greek. Cavafy is not regarded as a musical poet by Greeks. He's a very straightforward poet, and what he has to say is said in apparently a very plain way, but it's not as plain as it looks. So this is called Body Remember, and I'll read 4 or 5 lines in Greek and then read it in my translation. Θυμήσου σώμα θυμήσου, όχι μόνο το πόσο αγαπήθηκες, όχι μονάχα τα κρεβάτια όπου πλάγιασες, αλλά εκείνες τις επιθυμίες που για σένα γυάλιζαν μες στα μάτια φανερά και τρέμανε μες στη φωνή και κάποιο τυχαίο εμπόδιο τις μετέωσε. And here is a translation of this very short, but I think important poem in Cavafy's repertoire. Body, remember. Body, remember not just how much you were loved, not only the beds where you lay, but those desires for you that shone so openly in the eyes and trembled in the voice, and some chance obstacle frustrated them. Now that it's all in the past, it seems almost as if you gave yourself to those desires. How they shone, remember, in the eyes that looked at you, for you. How much the voice trembled for you. Remember, body. Cavafy was a gay poet and one of the first poets to write openly about his desires. Of course, he came from a country, from a language which had a long tradition of gay poetry and the Greek anthology, but still, it was very daring poetry. And it was really E.M. Forster who brought him to the attention of the English reader and was very interested in this frank poetry about homosexual encounters. And of course, these poets that I translate have affected my poetry and inspired poetry that is either a takeoff from their poems or related to them. So here's a poem I wrote called The Body Forgets. The mind forgets. We worry about a name not retrieved in time or why we went into a room, but the body's guilty too. The smell of Dior lipstick used to transport me straight to the Cairo Museum, its dusty shelves crowded with poorly sorted relics, and a hand that touched mine and whispered, 8 o'clock, D-Deck. Decades later, one sniff was enough. Now in the cosmetics department, I lift a lipstick to my nose and nothing happens. My mind remembers, my body fails to contract as it did for so long, triggering a spasm of pure desire. I don't want his name. It can sink into the Suez Canal with the ship where my parents drank cocktails, and he waited on the dark deck and kissed the scarlet from my lips. Now I'm left with the brand of a lipstick I bought that day. The body's forgotten what it felt like, that rush of blood through the veins. And I'll end with a poem about Ithaca. My husband is a scientist, and he spent his life studying turbulence and has now become an artist. But for most of 42 years of married life, we went hiking and he would tell me things that were interesting if they were related to his field of study. This is called On the Bridge at Treeman Gorge. We stand on the bridge watching the water, leaves land on the surface, turn this way and that, distracted from the flow into eddies, changing direction, the smallest joining a swirl of bubbles in a vortex. I see it as a pattern that pleases the eye. You see it obeying Lagrange's equations. In nature, you've taught me, nothing is truly random. The laminar flow devolves into turbulence, order into disorder, without apparent pattern. And yet a child makes order of a cloud, scalloping its edges into arched puffs. And water in its wildest flow braids itself like a woman's hair. The almost infinite degrees of freedom in turbulence motion should end in chaos, but order creeps in, and order the eye finds in disorder. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next up is Michelle Courtney Berry. There you are. Hi, Michelle.
Hello.
So I'm going to introduce you. So Michelle Courtney Berry is an American writer and entrepreneur of African and English descent, the second Poet Laureate, that was 2004 to 2006. Wow, it just seems like yesterday. It really does. And a published writer of fiction, nonfiction, prose, plays, and poetry. She holds an MPS degree in organizational communication from Cornell and a dual BA in literature, English, and rhetoric and political science from Binghamton University. This fall, she's an Ignatian doctoral scholar at Lemoyne. She's a coach, keynote speaker, trainer, and best-selling author. MichelleCourtneyberry.com, and I put the link in the chat. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, thank you. I just want to check in because we'll go over if we all take our time. So would you like me to shorten so that we don't lose audience for Melissa? We have one more reader, right? Or we have permission that the audience knows we're going to go over because we're not going to end at 7:30, right? If we all take our time.
That's
Correct?
right. If anyone, I am taping this, so if anyone has to leave early, then we'll catch Melissa. Sorry about that, everybody. I was not paying attention myself.
All right. Well, I just wanted to
I
check
hope
in.
you can stay, guys. It'll just be like another 5 minutes after.
Yeah, it'll be like an Ithaca
Yeah.
meeting. It doesn't end on time. So,
Yeah, yeah.
Perfect. I just wanted to check in. The first one is I wrote at Fine Arts Work Center. It's called 13 Postcards from the Cape. It's for Robert. 1, if you open the window, a breeze will come. If you open a door, the rain slants. High in the air, the house at Fine Arts, as if on stilts, shakes. Province towns alight, the bay a squint down Pearl Street. 2, like the sea, I want to go beyond the animal twinge to scrape through geology. 3, seen from the tour boat, sea otter, blue whale, shark, fat porpoise, octopus, the one I like best, a cephalopod, a word the scientist in you might like, with 3 hearts, 8 arms, and a special protection rarely afforded to invertebrates. 4, I touch for a living, but I don't touch you enough. A rub here, pat there, nothing prolonged, no ream of poems to stuff in your desk, no proof of love in print. 5. My poems to you are all in my head when something delights, the whirring of a hummingbird in hyacinth, bunch white clouds in a too blue sky, the way the queenie waiter tilts his head and says, "Girl, get on in here," motioning me to the best seat in the house. 6. All love poetry is bad. 7. On the street, a man licks the earlobe of another, one hand on his shoulder, the other pointing to a painting. I was dreaming you took me inside that house, bent me over the sink. Damn, it's very bold here. 8. What I'm trying to say is that you saved me. 9. Yesterday, slack water rose in the bay, but still no waves. A memorial, Stevie Wonder's singing. Poets read their work against backdrops of wild art. My poetry teacher's daughter murmurs to her, chattering in response to the mother's voice. If you were here, you'd understand the trouble with poetry and sand dunes in Truro. 10. How can you like chamomile tea? 11. Why can't I be like the octopus, boneless, colorless, and okay with abandoning home? 12. X. 13. Oh, the wind's in the trees and tonight, no moon. I'm so close to the ocean, I might drown. How my father prepared me. Daddy feels I need some sort of coming of age experience, 2 years shy of the age for a bat mitzvah, but not Jewish. My father comes up with something so original, no other Black girl I knew had ever experienced it. He took me ice fishing. On a day so cold it hurts, his voice drowns out my mother's protest. She's Black, Ma. She may as well learn suffering. Trees bearded with ice, the smoke sky, and everywhere the sound of falling as the truck rattles the ice rod, spinning reels and compasses. In the hitch, blankets, buckets, and 24 crappy minnows in the rusted red tin. On the ice, my father sits like a Buddha, adjusts his bucket, drills the holes, and pitches forward. God damn, he laughs. It's cold. But how long can you sit on a bucket, watching the white-skinned evergreens, the hoof-eyed doe skittering in the downy sun blindness? In the end, ice fishing is an act of desperation. Years before, he'd fallen through the ice, kicked his way back to memory, came home blued and withered, refusing to talk. Now the orange flag bolts up, the bass thrashes, we tug and grip the line. My father yells, the stakes heave, fluorescent flags stripe the sky. We win! Meaning, the bass got tired of all the ridiculous flailing and jerking and cursing and screaming and just heaved itself out of the water and just gave in. More annoyed than startled, its dark eye pulsed, my mouth opened and closed. Just as its mouth opened and closed. Daddy, can we save it? Can we please throw it back in? My father shook his head, pulled back my arm, retrieved the bass. Don't cry, Shug. Everything dies. The morgue. The dead wait here for saints or morticians, furnaces, coffins, the eager grasp of hell or heaven. The metal drawers are rusted red like salmon heads labeled 3 Ridge Road, 14 Cobble Lane. Do not cremate. Sunday, funeral, purgatory. I follow the nurse to my father's. Whatever she knows, she doesn't say. Black people need to give up this religion shit. When you die, you just shut your eyes and that's it. No heaven, no hell, no born again. My mother used to say this whenever my mother dreamt of death. If he had more imagination, he might have said, just earth and sky, your dead body, your only body. Here below the network of doctors ordering around the nurses, old men spitting into cups, and yellow plastic urinals lined on dinner trays. The morgue too has its rhythms. The drawers groan, open, resenting the thrusting of hinges to light. Few come down here, the nurse finally says. My father's hair resists the flat of my hand as if still growing, still refusing. I once told him about Sir Thomas More and Marie Antoinette, how they claimed to have gone gray overnight, just as he did. I read that pigmented hair sheds as white hair survives, and that hair perceived later as suddenly whitening was already white, a visual illusion. When I was a kid, my mother would bang a pot or blow a whistle when dinner was ready. Sometimes my father took over, blowing through his fingers. When this didn't work, he'd belt out, "Get your ass home." If I lean in close, I can still hear the thin whistle. Look at me, you weigh more than me now. He wheezed before he died. The nurse cries, pats my arm. We slide the drawer back, our fingers brushing. I steady myself, my back hard against the unforgiving drawer. Yet, over the shoulder of the nurse, I thought I saw my father, wheeling oxygen, a baseball cap mashed to his head, an index finger pressed to his lips. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. I want to mention that Michelle is teaching a workshop in the Spring Rites called Writing Through Trauma and Other Chaotic Events on Saturday, the 13th at 11 o'clock in the CAP Art Space. So check that out. Thank you. Thank you. Next up is Melissa Tuckey. Hi, Melissa. Melissa was the Poet Laureate from 2019 to 2020. She's a poet, editor, and teaching artist. She's the author of Tenacious Chapel, a book of poems, and Ghost Fishing, an eco-justice poetry anthology. She's an emeritus fellow at Black Earth Institute and a co-founder of Split This Rock, a national literary organization that supports poetry of provocation and witness. Thank you, Melissa, sorry.
Thank you, Robin. And thank you, Janie, for this invitation. Thank you, Poets Laureate. It's great to be in everyone's company. And also thank you, everyone who's listening in. Appreciate it. I am going to read 4 new poems, new favorites of mine. Ohio River, a love story. That first hard pull of the arms from water, upstream of the necropolis, where we float, engine idling at sunset. How agile our boat-dragged bodies in the skittering light. Up and down the river for hours, black smoke rushing our faces, riding that hobbled wake. How we washed the boat down each evening at the dock, stinking of river water, toweled her perfectly dry. Same river they threw you into to teach you how to swim, gasping for air when the fever broke, kicking your feet with joy. River house sinking in Ohio clay, walls papered with hunting dogs and rifled men. Ripped screens on the porch and Nana's potato salad. We lit to fire whatever the river spit up, dead fish or plastic bottle, Cadillac fender or rubber boot. What did we know about plastics and smoke, endocrine systems, or love? And the next poem is Pitching Our Tent in the Last Free Forest of the USA. Pitching our tent in the last free forest of the USA. I stand in the clear water of that mountain stream, washing 3 blue bowls and laying them neatly on a stone to dry, preparing to hike out. When a shock wave breaks the sound barrier, so near to our heads, a low rumble. In the chest, involuntary propulsion, buckle in the back of the knees, first sound, then sight. an apparition forcing its way across the sky above our heads. Christy in pajamas, brushing leaves from her hair, tent drying in the sun. 3 days in the wilderness, what we would have called our psychic space. No other humans in sight. The barred owls asleep in the hollows. The forest, the stream, the sun-warmed boulders we stretched our reptilian bodies across. What the fuck? Our animal bodies bent low in the last of our clean, dry clothes. Hands covering our heads as if the sky could shatter. A military jet ghosting us like a game. That really happened. Strange memories that end up in poems. Warming trends. The balance sheet is fraught, and we are over budget. Nothing but war today, and tomorrow war. Someone should shovel the ice from the walkway. Someone should ask where all these dollars are going like birds into the air, like commas or notes on a page, like bullets. Someone should ask for an accounting. Someone should rake gravel onto the ice before night falls, while there is still light in us, warm bodies moving as if in sleep. Someone should leave breadcrumbs for the rodents, compost for the worms, an apple for a hungry bear. Someone should call up the sunrise, scatter ash for the living, call a truce, make a pot of soup, translate this grief, sit with the dead, name and repair the torn fabric, name and repair this living grief, our planet. And I have one more poem for you, and this is also a moon poem. And I have a series of poems that are inspired by newspaper headlines, and this is one of them. So the newspaper headline is, "The moon should be privatized to help wipe out poverty on Earth," economists say. The moon should be privatized to help wipe out poverty on Earth, economists say. The moon in my silo was beautiful and rare. I etched the days in scratches on the wall, watched the sun to reach and then the stars, pretended a periscope looking up from a mottled sea. I questioned circumference, cast spells for alignment, waited for grace, an apple in my hands. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, so much for coming here tonight. And I hope to see you at more Spring Rights events. And have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.